Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Isha Dilraj, and it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome you to tonight's Ramayana Discourse by Sri Angajan. Commencing today and for the next 5 consecutive days from 7 p.m. till 8:15 p.m., Sri Angajan will unravel the deep pearls of wisdom from the Ramayana to reveal the time-tested and practical principles of life and living enshrined in the celebrated epic poem. The Life Mastery Foundation impacts and aids in transforming thousands of people's lives in South Africa and all around the world by imparting knowledge via various value-based educational projects, which include youth empowerment workshops, parenting workshops, marriage workshops, spiritual discourses, and corporate seminars. These educational projects are based on the proven, eternal, practical knowledge of Vedanta, which helps one to lead a self-disciplined, value-based, and principle-centered life. We now draw your attention to the profile video of Sri Angajan, after which Sri Angajan will delve into the nectar contained in the epic Ramayana. Thank you.
M.K. Angajan is an accomplished leadership and management guru, author, life coach, and globally sought-after keynote speaker. From his humble beginnings, born to a farmer in Kerala, India, the youngest of 10 siblings, his tenacious attitude and determination propelled him to overcome the harsh challenges and rural upbringings to the world-class leadership platforms.
Can you maintain the dynamism of a CEO, at the same time maintain the serenity of a saint? If you are, you can claim yourself to be a successful individual.
From a flourishing career in engineering, Angajan's natural curiosity and burning desire to seek answers to the greater questions of life, the universe, and the timeless unchanging knowledge of the self and spirituality led him to the philosophy of Vedanta, the time-tested knowledge of life and living, which he researched and assimilated intensely for 11 years as a full-time resident in an ashram in India. He is an enthralling keynote speaker, having presided at several prestigious events and conferences on the global stage. He has coached top-notch business leaders, inspired tens of thousands of distinguished audiences, entrepreneurs, youth and students globally for peak performances, fulfilled living, and to live a life in harmony with the laws of the universe. Angajan's books, Value Systems for Success and From Gods to Godhead, as well as audiobooks, CDs, and DVDs on various topics, received world recognition. By introducing his exceptional courses, companies have reported a happier workplace, increased efficiency, creativity, teamwork, better communication, decrease in illness and absenteeism, and an increase in overall turnover. He has featured in many TV and radio talk shows, as well as popular magazines. He has taken his philosophy to many countries across 5 continents. His scientific rationale, practical approach, and passionate presentations, grounded by wisdom, expertise, and humor, has earned him the patronage of many Fortune 500 corporations, international schools of business, and chambers of commerce internationally. Angajan follows a non-negotiable daily morning routine that he starts at 4 a.m., followed by introspection, study, research, hydration, yoga, and meditation. His morning routine also includes a natural, high-energy vegetarian diet that facilitates a healthy body and mind throughout the day. Some people influence us through writing, some through their speech, yet others through their life and the work they do. Angajan influences people across the world through all of the above. Please welcome Leadership and Management Guru, Angajan M.K.
Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaskar. And thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this evening and following 5 days that we will be studying the celebrated epic Ramayana. Whichever parts of the world that you're watching, welcome. Once, a pregnant mother asked her daughter, "What do you want, a brother or a sister?" And the daughter very gladly said, "I want a brother." And the mother asked, "A brother like whom?" And then the daughter said, "I want a brother like Ravana." "What? Have you gone off your rocker? What the hell are you saying? Have you lost your mind? How can you have a brother like Ravana?" Then the daughter explained, "Why not? Why not, mom? He left his royal kingship, his kingdom, all because his sister was disrespected. And even after he picked up his enemy's wife, he didn't touch her. Why would I not want a brother like Ravana? What would I do with a brother like Rama? Because he left his pregnant wife after just listening to the prattle of a dhobi, a laundry person. Though his wife followed him wherever he went like a shadow. And even after the exile of 14 years, when she came back, she was put through Agni Pariksha, and despite all that, she was sent back. Why do you keep chanting the mantra of Rama? Now, ladies and gentlemen, this celebrated epic Ramayana has got many such paradoxes, many contrasts, many diverse anecdotes, parables, and each one of them are deeply meaningful. See, the problem today is that we have a tendency to brand people. We compartmentalize people, we judge people and box them as good or bad. Just like the girl responded that, "Why do you brand Ravana as bad only and Rama is good?" I mean, now we bring this thought process in our practical life also, don't we? We tend to compartmentalize your relations, your friends, your acquaintance, as some people as good, some people are, others are bad. Now this is criminal. Now this is a terrible offense that we can commit when we brand people as negative or positive, because it adversely affects our relationship with those people. The truth of the matter is that nobody is good or bad. Even the worst person has got so much good in them, and vice versa. So we have this celebrated epic
who helps us to understand these paradoxes. I often used to wonder, what would be the state of humanity in the world if there are no Shastras, if there were no scriptures? What would be the state of people in the world if there are no gurus, mahatmas, sages, and saints? There will be a mental health crisis. As it is, there is mental health crisis all over the world, especially those people who do not pay heed to the Shastras, the scriptures. If these scriptures, the Shastras, the epics, Mahabharata, Ramayana, the Vedas, Upanishads, and all the scriptures of all the religion for that matter, if those spiritual literatures were not available, there will be a catastrophe as far as mental health of the people is concerned. Now, what we need to understand is that these Shastras, these sages and saints, gurus and mahatmas, do a great deal of healing, mental healing, emotional ill health. They heal. So this Shastra, this epic Ramayana, deals with how to overcome these emotional issues that we face in our day-to-day life. Now, in these 6 days that will be engaged in analyzing the Ramayana, remember, it is not going to be stories of Ramayana only. It is not Ram Katha, which I'm sure almost everybody know. Everybody who's a Hindu, who's following this tradition, will know the Ram Katha, the stories of Rama. But what we're going to focus is that the underlying allegoric message, the entire incidents, narrative, anecdotes of Ramayana, what Rama and Sita and many other both reverential or otherwise characters in Ramayana who went through, there is a parallel that we can draw and we can convert that into our practical life. Now, that is what our focus is going to be. As you know, Ramayana contained 24,000 verses, the second longest poem in the world, the first being Mahabharata. I've been asked many a times by people from different parts of the world, what is the difference between Ramayana and the Bhagavad Gita, or Ramayana and the Upanishad? Or let's put it this way, the epics and the deeper literatures like the Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, etc. The difference is this. The Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, they actually declare truths. They declare the philosophy, they declare the formulas. Whereas Ramayana and Mahabharata, the two epics, are the demonstrative Shastra. They actually demonstrate the very same principles that are discussed in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, there are four tiers of literatures in Hinduism. The 4 levels. The first, being the highest, are the philosophical literatures, which are the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. So when you read the Upanishads, talks about very terse, cryptic laws and principle, you begin to wonder, is it really practical? Who's going to practice it? To remove that doubt from your mind, they have given the epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, which are actually demonstrate that these values and principles can be lived in our day-to-day life. For example, when Rama had to leave overnight from Ayodhya to the forest, from the lap of the luxury to utter dangers of jungle, overnight he was shifted, but his state of mind was absolutely serene, calm, and peaceful. He did not make any difference. But what happens to us? If you lose something very small, we get affected. While the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads talk about this principle of vairagya or detachment, Ramayana and Mahabharata actually demonstrate it. They are the demonstrative literature. So that's the second tier. And the third tier is the Puranas, the Puranic stories. There are 18 Puranas, and each Puranas contain thousands of verses. The largest being Skanda Purana, containing about 18,000 verses. And then at the fourth tier are the rituals. So you have the philosophy contained in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. Then you have the epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Then the third tier is the Purana and the ritual. Rituals are the entry point of religion. Rituals are the kindergarten to religion. So we advance from rituals to Puranas to the epics and to the highest philosophy, studying the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. Now, the problem today is that the world don't seem to realize the value, the importance of this Shastras, how it impacts our psyche, our mindset. As I mentioned, a lot of mental health issues are cured because of people engaged in spirituality. Otherwise, there'll be a real crisis, mental health crisis, much more than what it is today. So the Ramayana is an experimental or demonstrate, just as when you study chemistry, you learn the laws of chemistry in the theoretical classroom, and you want to experiment it. If you want to experiment the law that you have learned in the classroom, you have to go to laboratory. You actually experiment it there, and then you know that it's working. So Ramayana is actually a demonstrative Shastra. It's actually demonstrating that it is working. All right. As I mentioned, a lot of people, treat the study of Ramayana as a post-retirement recreation. After retirement, when they don't have much to do, they open the Ramayana and they go through it, study the stories, not even derive the philosophy. That's what a lot of people do. The point is, what is the point in learning the philosophy, the principles of life and living, after you have completed your life? It has to be inculcated right in the beginning. Once, in one of the railway stations in Mumbai, there was an elderly gentleman waiting for his train. He was catching a long distance train. He was sitting in the train compartment, on the railway platform, and reading Ramayana. He was just sitting and reading very peacefully. And a young couple came and sat next to him. They just got married. He was a techie, maybe an IT specialist or whatever. And he looked at the old man and said, "Why are you wasting your time reading this age-old, antiquated Ramayana, which was written thousands and thousands of years ago? The world has changed, the technology has changed, everything is new. Why do you keep reading this old Ramayana?" He did not respond. He just looked at him, gave him a grin, and continued reading. Few minutes later, the train came. Everybody boarded the train. If you know what the train stations in Mumbai is, very, very crowded. All right. Obviously, because of the population, Mumbai has about 20 million people. Very crowded. So the train came, the people swarmed to the train, and everybody, whoever can get in, they got in, and the train left. And this elderly gentleman sat in the seat, continued his reading Ramayana. About half an hour later, the same young man who sort of ridiculed him for reading the antiquated Ramayana, came rushing and said, I can't find my wife. Did you see her? In the crowd, she got lost because I got in the train and the train moved and I lost her. The elderly gentleman lifted his head and said, if you had learned Ramayana before you got married, you would not have lost your wife. Because in the Ramayana, as you know, one of the very oft quoted episode is when Rama, Sita and Lakshmana left Ayodhya and they were in the forest, and there is an episode of the boatman, Kevat, all right? When they were getting into the boat, Rama guided Sita to get into the boat first, and then he followed. Whereas what did he do? He got in, this man, he got in the train and the train left. He left his wife. He can't find it. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that these Shastras are not a post-retirement recreation. It is something that every single one of us need to learn in the very beginning of life, because it teaches us how to maintain an effective, happy relationship with your spouse. It explains to us what is the mental disposition, what is the thought process, what is the attitude that you got to maintain towards your material pleasures, material possessions and enjoyment. It teaches us how to manage mental pressure. Today, everybody complains about work pressure, too much work, a lot of stress. There are two types of people. One set of people are very active, dynamic, productive, but they lose the peace of mind. They're under tremendous mental pressure. There are another set of people who are peaceful, but they're not very dynamic. So Ramayana teaches us that technique as to how to maintain the dynamism and efficiency of a billionaire. At the same time, maintain the serenity of a saint. It is a very rare combination to be able to maintain the dynamism of a billionaire and serenity of a saint. There is nothing that you need. The life skills, there's no other life skill that you need apart from what Ramayana teaches. So in this few days or in this few hours, we will focus upon some of the very significant episodes in Ramayana and draw a parallel that is applicable to our day-to-day life and living. Practical living, otherwise it has no meaning. You know, when we study these literatures, one of the things that you got to understand is that these understanding of these philosophy not necessarily reduce your problems. Because there are people ask, Angajanji, if I study Ramayana, if I study Bhagavad Gita, will my problem get reduced? Definitely not. It won't reduce, and it shouldn't reduce, because if problems are not there, there's no life. Life is a continuous solutions to problem. Where there are no problem, there is no life. There is only one generation of people in the world who have no problems at all. They have absolutely no problem. You will find them in the graveyard. So if you have problems, thank God that you're living, because life is a continuous solution to problem. So understanding the Ramayana, understanding the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, or any spiritual literatures, they don't necessarily reduce your problems, but it will definitely help you develop the mental stamina to face the challenges. You develop that ability to handle the challenges. That's what happened. And if you're able to face the challenges squarely, it's not really a problem. You'll be inspired, you'll be excited. So a lot of people tend to think, okay, when we see this, when we read these literatures, the problems will reduce. Problem shouldn't reduce, because, in life, remember, nobody has ever achieved success and happiness in ideal condition. People who have found joy and happiness, success and happiness, have always been in adverse condition. They rise above the challenges. That is how they achieved success. But today people complain about problems of life because of the wrong perspective of the problem. There's only one problem in life. That is the way we see the problem. If you change the way you see the problems, there is no problem thereafter. So Ramayana gives us that mindset. And as you know, it is composed, written by the celebrated sage Valmiki. What an incredible story of Valmiki. As you know, the story goes, Valmiki was son of a dacoit, a highway robber. His profession was to waylay people. On the way, on the road, on the path, he would waylay people and steal their possessions and belongings. That's what Valmiki used to do. He was not Valmiki at that time. His name was Ratnagar, a robber. And he used to make a living out of it. And what happens is, on one occasion, he was about to attack a saint. Sage Narada was passing. He disguised as a sadhu. He was passing by with his disciples. And at that time, Ratnagara was about to attack him and to steal his belongings. And as he was about to attack, the Ratnagara robber was stunned by his charisma, his personality, power. He was exuberant. He was filled with that spiritual energy. And he was stunned, shocked. He recoiled. And Narada asked Ratnagara, why do you do this? Why do you waylay people? Why do you rob people? Ratnagara said, because I need to feed my family. I need to look after my family. And the Valmiki asked Ratnagara that, do you know what you're doing is wrong and there's going to be negative consequences, karma, bad karma? Ratnagara said, I don't know. You will have to bear the consequences. Will your wife share with the bad consequences that you're going to face? I don't know. Why don't you go and ask? So Ratnagara went back to his family and asked his wife that, I do this waylay people, steal from people to look after you. Will you share the consequences, the bad consequences that I'm going to face? His wife said, no, I can't. I won't. And Ratnagara came back to Valmiki. Ratnagara came back to Narada and said, this is what my wife said. So what do I do? What is my repentance? How do I atone this sins that I've been committing? Narada said, you got to meditate. What do I meditate on? Valmiki said, you got to chant Mara. You keep chanting Mara. Sit in a quiet place, keep chanting Mara. And Ratnagara did. He sat there and he continued to chant the mantra Mara. Mara, 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 Mara. It went on for years together. When you keep chanting Mara, it becomes Rama, as you know. And the story goes, he sat there for years together and anthill eventually grew on him. Anthill covered his entire body. He continued to chant. And eventually, he eradicated his entire sin, entire karma. He emerged acquiring moksha. That is how Ratnagara became Valmiki. The word Valmika means anthill. Valmiki means one who emerged out of anthill. So that is how a robber, a highway robber, became a great saint. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the two things that you got to understand in this. Number one is that, the effects of your karma, good, bad, indifferent, nobody can share it. You got to bear it. Whether if it is your parents' karma, you got to bear it. There are people who believe that, they do certain rituals after the parents pass away so that we can bear the karma of the parent. Nobody can bear the karma of somebody else. You got to bear it. You got to handle, you got to go through it yourself. Number one. Number two, that's more important, is that it doesn't really matter how bad you have been in the past. What matters is what direction, what steps are you taking to move forward? There are people, who feel a great sense of regret that, oh, I have done such bad deeds in the past. Yes, everybody, every human being in the world have got bad karma, bad in the past. There's a saying, every sinner has a future, just as every saint had a past. Every sinner has a future, just as every saint had a past. Just as a highway robber who's been committing some certain atrocious crime can be converted into a great saint like Valmiki, everybody in the world has hope. It doesn't really matter how bad you have been in the past or how much of negative deed you have committed in the past. What matters is if you take responsibility now and begin to move forward. It's like being wealthy, being rich. When you want to be rich, it doesn't really matter how bad or how spendthrift you have been in the past. What matters is how much are you earning now and are you going to be saving? It's a matter of time. In the same way, in our life as well. Just as if you walk into, let's say, an unexplored cave, just imagine in a mountain, there's a cave that's been there for millions of years, and it's pitch dark inside. It doesn't matter how thick the darkness is, how pitch the darkness is. It doesn't matter how long the cave has been dark. The first ray of light, the first candle that you bring into that cave, it will remove the entire darkness. It doesn't really matter how many million years this darkness has been or how pitch the darkness has been. A candle will remove the darkness. Similarly, we are caught up in this ignorant world. We are ignorant of the truths of life, the realities of life. Doesn't matter how long you have been ignorant, doesn't matter how much bad karma you have accumulated. If you take the responsibility and continue your spiritual journey to transform yourself, it is a matter of time. Just as a highway robber can be converted into a great saint, everybody in the world has got hope. So Ramayana describes this rise and fall of every human being. The entire stories and anecdotes are describing how a human being has fallen from the height of spiritual perfection to this depth of degradation, of pain and suffering and anxiety that we go through. How did we come to the state of depression and stress and anxieties? There's no happiness. How did we come? And what is the step that we can take? How do we retrace a step? That is what the whole Ramayana is talking about. Now, when we talk about Ramayana, there are two main characters that comes into our mind, and perhaps you've guessed it. The two main characters are Rama and Ravana. These are the two main characters around which the whole Ramayana revolves around. Rama, people brand him as positive, good. Ravana, people brand him as negative, evil. But let us analyze these characters. There are many other characters that we'll be analyzing. Now, these two main characters represents two role models in life. You know, when you learn certain spiritual values, or when you want to transform yourself from negative to positive, when you have a role model, it becomes so much easier, because when you visualize a person who lives a specific value that you want to live, when you mentally visualize him, it is much easier. It gives you an enthusiasm. It gives you a certain amount of motivation to translate that value into your day-to-day life. Similarly, Rama is a role model. He is proverbially known as Maryada Purushottama, meaning one who's perfect in every aspect of life. An ideal son, a perfect husband, a noble enemy. Even as an enemy, he was noble. A good brother, a sacrificial brother, a charitable king. Every aspect of Rama's life is considered to be perfect. So when you study the character of Rama, you have a role model. Today in the world, youth particularly, they don't have role models. They don't have leaders whom they can emulate. Many leaders that they can think of, many of them or most of them are stained with many corrupt and evil practices. That is why many youth tend to follow celebrities. They make celebrities as a role model. And as you know, celebrities, with due respect to them, they don't necessarily perfect in everything that they do. And if at all they imitate, they follow celebrity, they only imitate their external paraphernalia. They imitate their looks, they imitate their hairstyle, they imitate their look, they imitate their dress style. That's all that they can imitate. They can't really follow the value system that they're actually living, because they can only imitate the physical appearance. You know, once one of my popular stories that I talk about is about Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin, a great comedian as he was, Sir Charlie Chaplin, he was knighted. He was walking through a street in Switzerland. As he was walking, he came across a billboard, a sizable billboard that was announcing a competition. The competition was Charlie Chaplin look-alike competition. And when he came to see the billboard, he stood there and looked at the billboard, and he got a brainwave. That is, the billboard was actually announcing a competition. The competition was Charlie Chaplin look-alike competition. And when he saw it was a Charlie Chaplin look-alike competition, that's when he got the brainwave. He himself decided to participate in the competition, Charlie Chaplin look-alike competition. He participated. There were over 50 contenders. A true story. He wrote it in his memoir. There were about 50 contenders. And Charlie Chaplin, the original Charlie Chaplin himself, participated in the competition, Charlie Chaplin look-alike competition. And when the result was announced, the original Charlie Chaplin came 7th. He couldn't even get the 2nd position. He failed miserably. And he said such certain profound things. First of all, he doubted, am I really Charlie Chaplin or am I somebody else? Am I really Charlie Chaplin? And he said, in the world, real men fail and fake people succeed. Real men fail, fake people succeed. And he said something more profound than that. That's what I want to draw your attention. He said, all these 6 people who came before me, they copied my physical appearance. They copied my looks. They copied my mush. They copied the way I swing the stick. They copied my cap. They copied the way I walk. None of them can copy my attitude. None of them can copy my mind. It is my attitude. It is the mindset that made me. Charlie Chaplin. There are thousands and thousands of what do you call this? The comedians. All right. There are thousands of comedians, but they don't become Charlie Chaplin. It is my mindset that made me Charlie Chaplin. But the problem is, when we imitate, when we emulate celebrities, we can only imitate their physical appearance. We cannot imitate their thought process. But when we study Ramayana or Mahabharata, the beauty is that we can emulate, we can emulate the thought process. We can emulate the value system, the attitude that Lord Rama maintained. That is the beauty of it. Imitating the physical appearance adds no value, no matter who it is. But when we assimilate the value system, the thought process, that is when we are able to transform ourselves. Charlie Chaplin said something more. He said, I enjoyed losing the competition more than the 6 people who won the competition, because he was very amused, was never affected. All right. So when we study Ramayana, we begin to unravel the value system, the thought process, the attitude, the emotions that are essential to maintain a proper harmonious relationship in whatever relationship that you enjoy in life. Right? So this celebrated epic containing 24,000 verses. Now, these verses have got certain characteristics. They can be compared to a bouquet, a cluster of flowers. Why? Because, as you know, flower has got 3 characteristics. Right? One is the beauty of the flower, which you can appreciate from far. Like if you see a widespread of flower in a flower farm, like tulips or rose or any other farm, it's beautiful. All right. The beauty of the flower can be appreciated from far. The second characteristics of a flower is the fragrance, the aroma. The fragrance you cannot get watching from far. You got to come closer. And the third aspect of a flower is the honey. Honey is deep inside. Only it takes a honeybee to go deep, to go inside and absorb the honey. Similarly, these verses from Ramayana, it's got 3 characteristics. Number 1, the story. Very inspiring story. Very thought-provoking. It really inspires our emotion when we watch the Ramayana programs or read the story. The second is the practical philosophy. It gives certain moral values. But if you really want to imbibe the deep spiritual values, you got to be like a honey with a sharp intellect to explore these principles and understand the values. You got to focus. So pay undivided attention. Make sure that there isn't any distraction when you're trying to listen to these principles that I'm talking. Make sure that there is minimum distraction, because on an evening like this, when you listen to, it's very easy to get distracted with so many other things. All right. So make sure that you pay undivided attention, because as I said, I'm not going through elaborate stories of Ramayana. I'm talking about the principle, the philosophy. All right. See, in the world, if you look at in Satya Yuga, all right, the gods and demons were in 2 different worlds, in heaven and hell, as it were. I'm talking about in Satya Yuga, right? In Treta Yuga, the gods and demons were in the same world, like Rama and Ravana. All right. In Dwapara Yuga, the negatives and positives were in the same family, like in the case of Mahabharata, in the Kauravas and the Pandavas. In Kali Yuga, in this day and age, both negativity and positive is in the same individual. It's not in different family. It's not in two different worlds. It is not two different countries. It is the same individual. So these anecdotes and parables and episodes from Ramayana helps you to pause, reflect, take an about turn and look within and find out what is happening within our own system. The word Ramayana is made of two Sanskrit words, Rama and Ayana. Ayana means path, the path that you tread, all right, the way. Rama represents the soul, the individual. The word Rama in Sanskrit, the etymological derivation of the word Rama means sarvasmin ramate iti Rama, meaning that which revels in every single one of us. So Rama is that divine spark, that spiritual spark within each one of us. The divinity, the God principle within each one of us is Rama. Sarvasmin ramate iti Rama. And Ayana means path. So Ramayana is the path of the soul. Ramayana is the path that the soul takes to evolve into a higher plane of living, a greater bliss, a higher level of consciousness that we can live. It is the journey of the soul, Rama and Ayana. Sarvasmin Ramade. So Rama is within each one of us. So also Ravana. We'll get into the details as we go along. Both Rama and Ravana is playing within the bosom of every single one of us. So this literature, epic, helps us to get into a sneak peek into our own personality. As you know, Lord Ram is the seventh avatar of Vishnu. Avatar is one who's born attuned to God consciousness. Who's an avatar? Avatar is one by birth itself is attuned to God, united to God by birth, is an avatar. Whereas, there are many great sages and saints, galaxy of sages and saints in the past who reached the state of God consciousness, who lived a realm of God consciousness right here, but they're not considered avatar because they were not born God realized. Through spiritual practices, they reached God realization. Whereas avatar is one who is attuned to God consciousness by birth itself. That was Rama, the seventh avatar of Vishnu. In the Bhagavad Gita, the chapter 4, the fourth verse, fourth chapter, the 8th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Fourth chapter, the 8th verse talks about Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirbhavati bharata abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. What that means is, why does avatar appear? Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirbhavati bharata. Whenever there is a decline of dharma, righteousness, and rise of adharma, unrighteousness, I will appear again and again, says Bhagavan Krishna, says, Vishnu appear again, God appear in the world again and again. For what? What is the purpose? The next verse discusses the purpose of that. That is, paritranaya sadhuna. That is to protect the virtuous. Vinashaya cha dushkritam, to destroy the evil. Dharma samsthapanarthaya, to establish dharma. Sambhavami yuge yuge, I will appear again and again. And it is a fact. If you look at the history of India, almost every quarter of a century, every couple of decades or so, there has been God-realized sages and saints appeared by appointment, as it were. They appear, they lift people to a great height of spiritual consciousness, God consciousness, and the Mahatma disappear, and a few years, a couple of decades later, another great Mahatma comes up. This has been the history of India, so that you find in India, there's been a galaxy of sages and saints who appeared in the tide of times and inspired people to a great height of spiritual consciousness. And they disappeared. And it will continue to happen. Sometimes it can be in a small congregation, medium congregation, or large congregation, but that's a reality. So Rama, the seventh avatar of Vishnu, who resurrected people, his advent transformed God consciousness of the people and brought about a huge renaissance, a spiritual awakening in the minds of people. Now, when we study Ramayana, ladies and gentlemen, there's something that you got to understand, is that Ramayana is an itihasa grantha, meaning it is a historical epic. Now, when I say it's a historical epic, what we need to understand is that all the descriptions and anecdotes and narratives in Ramayana are not to be taken literally. They need to be interpreted and derive the philosophy. Many people take certain stories in Ramayana literally and get into deep trouble. They get confused. That's what I mean by getting into trouble. All right. They are to be interpreted. It is a combination of history and mythology. Not everything that is described in Ramayana is historical fact. Now, this has been the practice for millenniums. It's not only during the time of Ramayana, sage Valmiki compiled the Mahabharata. Even modern story creators, the movie producers, etc., they do the same thing. They take certain historical characters, historical personality, or certain historical incidences, and they spin a story around it to convey a message. So what sage Valmiki has done, he took the character Lord Ram, his father Dasharatha, consort Sita, and his family members, and sage Valmiki spun a story around it, packed with profound practical philosophy, deep practical philosophy. That's what sage Valmiki has done. Just as there have been many profound, impactful movies being produced by many producers, and one such movie was the Titanic. I'm sure you all have watched it, a couple of, probably about 2-3 decades ago. The movie Titanic, it was a historical fact how in 1912, the first ship that left London in a voyage to New York, the ship was called the Unsinkable. All right. And the ship broke into 2 parts and eventually sunk. So James Cameron, the producer of the movie, had an objective to convey how exactly this has happened, what exactly happened. And he's done a lot of work, go deep into the ocean and shot the wreckage that is still in the depth of the ocean, shot those and brought it alive for you and me to watch. But to make it different from a simple documentary, what did he do? He spun a beautiful romantic story around it, isn't it? Jack and Rose, they met in the ship and they fell in love, and then the story went on. That is not true. That is only a fillip. That is only fillers to give certain entertainment value of the movie. It's not history. The ship sunk is a history, all right? And it's one of the longer movies, lasting about 3.5 hours or so. And I'm sure everybody enjoyed watching it, right? Similarly, Ramayana. There are certain historical instances that sage Valmiki took, and he spun a story, beautiful, very inspiring, exciting story. There is war, there is romance, there is family relationship, everything is packed in it, incredibly powerful. So what we need to understand is that it's not only James Cameron, Shakespeare, William Shakespeare. Shakespeare has done the same thing. Shakespeare has got 3 types of plays, all right? Historical plays, then he's written tragedies and comedies. The historical plays are certain historical instances. Henry V, Richard III, Julius Caesar, they're all historical plays and historical instances. But then what Shakespeare has done is that he picked up those characters, those places, those instances, and he spun a story around it to convey philosophy. Same thing sage Vyasa has done, same thing as in the Mahabharata, as well as Valmiki in Ramayana. All right. So now the story goes. The king of Kosala, Dasharatha. Kosala was the kingdom where Dasharatha ruled, and Ayodhya was the capital of the kingdom of Kosala. So Dasharatha ruled Kosala, very noble king, ruled the kingdom very generously. King Dasharatha had 3 queens, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. They were very happy. They were very happy, and many years went by. He married one after the other. See, one of the very important aspect for a king those days is to have a son to be the heir to the throne. So Dasharatha had no issues. Dasharatha had no children, despite having 3 queens. He was very, very dejected, very disappointed. Who's going to inherit the kingdom? Right? So, that's what happens in life. A person can have everything in terms of wealth, health, prosperity, name, fame, but there's always something missing. In our life also, we all feel that what I would call as the if-only syndrome. Most people suffer from that if-only syndrome. We feel that something that is missing. And we feel that if that problem, if that desire is fulfilled, my life is complete. That's what happened to everybody. So did it happen to Dasharatha. He was very happy with his 3 queens and the kingdom, etc., very prosperous kingdom, but he was very, very disappointed and dejected that he had no issues, no children. So, in order to have child, his Kula Guru, sage Vasishta, prescribed a particular yajna. That particular yajna is called Putra Kameshti Yajna. That is, when you perform that particular havan, particular ritual, chances are that one can have a child. So under the guidance of sage Vasishta, King Dasharatha performed that Putra Kameshti Yajna. And the prasadam, or the portion, after the ritual is over, were divided into 3 parts, and it was distributed to the 3 queens. And there was a little bit that is left, and that was given to Sumitra, the youngest one. All right. And they consumed, and time went by. 4 wonderful sons were born to the 3 queens. Kausalya gave birth to Lord Ram. Sumitra gave birth to Lakshmana and Shatrughna, and Kaikeyi gave birth to Bharata. 4 illustrious sons. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is this particular episode is talking about? Sage Vasishta, Kulaguru, his family priest, recommending or prescribing performance of Putra Kameshti Yajna. You know, today in the world, it's a problem. Many couple who want to have children, they are not able to. Whereas if you go back to 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, a lady could give birth to 10, 12, 15 children. Now they can't even have one child. And we do not even allow the plant to have seeds. We all want seedless fruit, seedless grapes, seedless narcis, oranges, because it's easy for us to. So through genetical modification, we allow even plants not to have seed, and it affects us. It definitely is not a healthy habit to consume seedless fruit because it is convenient for you to eat. If you continue to do that, you won't have seed as well. That's the reality. So those days, in order to see, having children is not just a process of insemination. It's not about trying to impregnate a woman. There are various aspects involved in it. You know, those days, when the couple did not have children, when the lady is not able to conceive, they made 3 approaches. All right. One is, of course, the medical approach, of course, herbal medicine those days. One is the medical, second is psychological, third is spiritual. Medical, psychological, and spiritual. But today, the young couple, if the lady is not able to conceive, or if the man is not able to impregnate his wife, all right, most people only do the medical approach. That's not complete. Today you have the IVF and many other modern technology, medical technology, they have biotechnology rather, they have developed, but that's not complete. It has to be approached 3-pronged. Medical is one, of course, the insemination is important. Then medical, psychological, as well as spiritual. Psychological means there are certain psychological thought process has the lady and the man has to carry, the wife and husband. And of course, the religious, the spiritual aspect. Yes, some people do the spiritual aspect also. Still, they can't conceive. Excuse me. So those days, they made all the 3 approaches, the medical, psychological, and spiritual. Remember, it is the mind, it is the thought process that impact to have the child, also to have the right type of child. In other words, at the time of conception, at the time of insemination, the kind of thought process that the young couple go through decides whether the lady is able to conceive or not. And if at all she conceives, what type of child she will bring out, what type of child they are able to have. That is also dependent upon the kind of thought that they entertain. So it's not just about medical only. So Sage Vasishta encouraged the father, the Dasharatha, to perform that particular yajna, and they were very happy for wonderful children. They were so happy. Now, you might wonder, so that means in Hinduism, polygamy is allowed, having more than one wife? Definitely not. Hinduism always maintained certain values and principles. It's always been one partner. Then how come King Dasharatha had 3 queens? Remember, it is royalty. When he could not have a child, he married the second one and then the third one. And when none of them could bear a child, that's when he decided to go for this Putra Kameshti Yajna, so on and so forth. Now that is one. Secondly, these 3 queens are also to be taken symbolic. All right. Kaushalya, Kaikeya, and Sumitra. Now, Ayodhya the word Ayodhya is also deeply symbolic and meaningful. Yuddha means war. Ayodhya, Ayodhya is a realm of no war, a realm of no fight. So where is Ayodhya? Where exactly is Ayodhya? You might say Ayodhya is a place in Uttar Pradesh in India. Yes, of course it is a place in Uttar Pradesh. You don't have to go to Uttar Pradesh to find in India to find Ayodhya. Ayodhya is right here. Ayodhya symbolizes your mind, your inner world. Your inner world is a realm of no conflict, no yuddha, no war. At the moment, that realm of no war has been converted into a realm of conflict, strife, and confrontation. As I mentioned in the beginning, the demon, the enemies, the good and bad is within each one of us. In Dwapara Yuga, good and bad in two different worlds. All right? Isn't it? But now the good and bad is within the bosom of every one of us. So there is always that conflict, the war between the higher aspirations and lower temptations. Isn't it? The war, the yuddha, is between temptations and higher aspirations. So your personality is Ayodhya, in which King Dasharatha ruled. Dasha Radha. Dasha means 10, Radha means chariot. So Dasharatha was one who can handle 10 chariots at one time. That was Dasharatha. Now, what does it mean for you and me, having able to manage 10 chariots? The 10 chariots means the 10 senses. The 10 senses are the 5 organs of perceptions, namely the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. They are called jnanendriyas. You also have the 5 organs of actions called karmendriyas: hands, legs, organ of speech, genitals, and organs of evacuation. So you can be a Dasharatha when you have mastered the 10 senses. At the moment, we are slave to our own 10 senses. We are not a master of senses. So you become Dasharatha when you conquer the 10 senses. Analyze and take your own self-inventory and find out how you become a victim of the senses. If a particular taste is not pampered, you're affected, aren't you? We are carried away by the attractions of the senses. So the first principle that Ramayana teaches is that you got to be a master of senses, not a victim of senses. That was Dasharatha. And when you master the senses, when you control your senses, what happens is there is another power within each one of us, which is called gunas. The gunas are 3 in number. They are sattva, rajas, and tamas. All right. The 3 gunas, namely sattva, rajas, and tamas, at the moment we are controlled by these gunas. For example, tamas, laziness, lethargy, sleepy nature. After 9, 10, 11 o'clock, we feel sleepy. It's very difficult to keep awake. And when the sleep continues in the morning, when the alarm goes off, it's so difficult for us to wake up. We can't conquer our sleep. Sleep is controlling us. Tamas is controlling us. Similarly, rajas. When emotions like anger, greed manifest in our mind, we are not able to hold it back. Anger is controlling us rather than we controlling the anger. All right. So these 3 gunas, when you have mastery over the 10 senses, the jnanendriyas and the karmendriyas, what happens is that the three gunas become subservient to you. You control them. You control your sleep. You control your anger. You control your greed, everything. That is represented by the three queens, Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. So the three queens are the three gunas becoming subservient to a man who has a woman or anybody who gained mastery over his own self. So the question is, are you Dasharatha, one who has mastered the senses? Then you find these gunas becoming sub. At the moment, it is not. When there is attraction, when there is temptation, we are not able to hold it back. We become helplessly driven by the gunas to enjoy the worldly pleasures, things that are detrimental to us. So when the first thing that we got to understand is the entry point, how the world enter our system is through the five senses, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. And very often, those five senses become our worst enemy. It is our most dangerous enemy that everyone need to fight. That is the Dasharatha and the three queens. And Ayodhya is right within each one of us, peace. When we are able to conquer the three gunas, when we are able to conquer the 10 senses, we bound to experience serenity, peace, and contentment right here. We live in the realm of Ayodhya. And the story continues. Having had the 4 wonderful children, wonderful boys, they grew up in the palace under the tutelage of Vasishta, the Kulaguru. Those days, ancient times, one of the very important skills, especially Kshatriyas learned was the art of archery, shooting with arrows. Now, archery was taught not only as a tool for warfare, the art of archery was taught as a method of developing concentration. One of the problems that most people go through today is their inability to concentrate, their inability to focus. So the entire Ramayana, or many aspects of Ramayana, deals with how to develop that concentration, how to learn to focus. If you learn to focus, you're a master, you conquer the world. One of the very important life skill that we got to learn is how to keep your mind focused. The schools don't teach us. The teachers ask the students to focus. But if you turn back and ask them, what is focus? What is concentration? They'll say, never mind, simply concentrate. It is a way, there is a technique. We got to understand. So archery was used as a means to develop concentration and focus. So these young boys, the young princes, 4 princes, Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrughna, grew up in Ayodhya under the tutelage of sage Vasishta, learned the art of archery, and they begin to enter into the life, especially the life of householder. Now, the next episode in the Ramayana, the next section of Ramayana, deals with the qualifications necessary to enter into the life of a householder. The qualification necessary to enter in the life of a grahastha householder. Today, most young couple who get married, absolutely, they have no consideration whatsoever. Are they really qualified to get married? Most of them are not. That's why, having got married, they spend a fair amount of money, a lot of time and effort to spend. Within no time, they're divorced, because human relationship is an art, it's a skill. The Ramayana teaches us what is the qualification that you need. And once you develop that qualification, once you learn that qualification, and then you enter the institution of householder. And what is that qualification? We will continue the discussion tomorrow at the same place, at the same time. All right. Namaskar. Thank you very much. I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Angajan for that dynamic and inspiring discourse. What a beautiful start to Ramayana Week. I think one of the many important practical tips that we can take away from today's discourse is that if you change the way you see the problems, there will be no problems. Meaning you need to change your perspective in life and master your senses, engaging deeply with our scriptures as this helps us to develop our mental faculty and teaches us how to cope and live happily. So thank you, Angajan. I'm truly looking forward to the rest of the week. Dear devotees, please do not forget to subscribe to all our social media platforms. The links are in the description box below. And to be notified of all future events and inspiring video uploads, please make sure that you have also subscribed to our YouTube channel and have clicked the bell icon. Remember, all this beautiful knowledge requires you to revisit the teachings, and most importantly, to put this into practice in our day-to-day lives. Therefore, if you wish to continue this enlightening journey, a kind reminder that Angajan's CDs, DVDs, and books are available via the website www.lifemastery.vision. Some of my personal favorites include the 12 Habits of Highly Happy People, a spiritual approach to stress management, and the 4 essentials of a peaceful mind. So head over to the website and continue this wonderful spiritual journey. Once again, thank you everyone for joining today. Looking forward to seeing all of you tomorrow evening, same time, same place. A blessed evening to you all. Stay safe, take care, and Hari Om.